I'd like to begin this talk with a question that makes most executives very uncomfortable. If our current management practices are good enough to defend, then why does Gallup report that the global cost of employee disengagement is $10 trillion every single year? $10 trillion. That's not a rounding error. That is a number larger than the GDP of every country on earth except for the US and China. When leaders are confronted with this number, they almost universally do the same thing. They look outward. They blame the workforce. They say the people don't want to work anymore. They say the new generation lacks loyalty. They say the work ethic is dead. They treat the $10 trillion as something that is happening to them, but I want to propose a different explanation. The $10 trillion is not happening to management. It's being manufactured by management. The $10 trillion is not a workforce problem. It is management's alibi. It is the price tag of a leadership class that refuses to accept responsibility for the systems they control. Let's take a look at how this alibi is constructed. When a team misses a deadline, the instinct is to ask who failed. When quality slips, the instinct is to find the person who is responsible. When engagement collapses, the instinct is to question the commitment of the workforce. Natural responses, they also, in 94% of cases, wrong. W. Edwards Deming, the father of modern quality management, proved decades ago that 94% of all organizational failures are failures of the system, not the individual. But the system is invisible. The person is visible. The system cannot be called into a performance review. The person can. The system cannot be put on a performance improvement plan. The person can. And so the person absorbs the consequence of a failure they did not cause and a system they did not design under rules they did not write. This is the environment ownership gap. Leaders demand ownership from their teams, yet they fail to recognize that they have abdicated their own most critical responsibility. They do not understand that their primary job is no longer to perform the work or even manage the work. Their primary job is to create the environment in which the work happens. When leaders refuse to own the environment, they create the transformation illusion. I see this constantly in my consulting work. A company decides they need to be more efficient. So they buy a massive ERP system, or they adopt Agile, or they invest millions in AI. But then they say the most expensive sentence in corporate history. We want to do it our way. They want the new technology, but they refuse to change the industrial age management structure that governs it. They keep the approval chains. They keep the status meetings. They keep the surveillance metrics. We want to do it our way as a pre-constructed exit ramp. If the transformation succeeds, leadership takes credit. If it fails, they have ensured it will fail by refusing to change the environment. The tool is blamed. Agile is blamed. AI is blamed. The management structure that refused to change is never examined. I once coached a technology leader who managed entirely through fear. Tight deadlines, public accountability for failures, bonuses tied strictly to on-time delivery. His team was deeply disengaged. They were becoming zombies. Then the organization restructured. They introduced a new compensation plan that included a team health component, measuring psychological safety and knowledge sharing. Lo and behold, his behavior changed. Within a quarter, he started asking questions instead of issuing directives. He started celebrating team wins instead of individual heroics. 2 years later, his team had the highest retention rate in the division. When I asked him about his transformation, he told me, I didn't change. The scoreboard changed. He was right. People are coin operated. The system dictates the behavior. When management changed the system, the engagement problems solved themselves. We cannot solve a $10 trillion problem by blaming the people who are suffering inside the system we built. If you're a leader, you cannot demand that your team take ownership of their work until you have first taken ownership of the environment. You can't ask them to be innovative if you build a system that punishes failure. You can't ask them to be proactive if you require approval for every minor decision. The environment you create dictates the behavior you get. If you have a team of disengaged zombies, it is because you built or inherited and failed to change a zombie-making environment. The night before the D-Day invasion, Dwight D. Eisenhower wrote a press release to be issued in the event the invasion failed. He wrote, "If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." He built a firewall of accountability around his entire command, and he placed himself at the top of it. That is the standard. The $10 trillion heist ends the moment leaders stop blaming the workforce and start taking responsibility for the environment. Stop looking for an alibi. Start building an environment worthy of your people's passion. Thank you.